The Phaeton are one of the greatest power and threat in all of Teyvat. Fear and despise for their deceitful and ruthless reputation. Their influence reached every nation. They served the Tsaritsa with absolute loyalty, carrying out her will even though her true goal remained unknown to the world. Only the Harbinger, the executive head of the organization, are aware of our plan, and even they help shape its realization. We met several Phaeton members throughout the journey, and surprisingly many of them aren't purely evil. Some even became our friends and aided the traveler, especially in places like Nod-krai, but there's always exception. Il Dottore, the doctor, the second Harbinger, a man who cared for nothing but his experiment, a man with no remorse, no empathy, and no limits. If thousands must die for his research to succeed, so be it. Cunning, calculating, and always 10 steps ahead, Dottore operates from the shadow. His obsession lies in one goal: creating a god, or elevating humanity to the level of one. Hello everyone, I'm your Cyborg Dragon storyteller, Panagon Vanemar, and welcome back to Chronicles of Teyvat. Today we'll tell the full story of the second Harbinger, Dottore. I did a video about it some months ago, but with the new information and the end of his story we got in 6.6, I decided to remake the video and add the missing pieces. So let's begin. Some decade after the cataclysm, a man named Zandik was born. For unknown reason, likely linked to horrific research, he was driven from his hometown by an angry mob wielding pitchfork and clubs. Eventually he found his way to Sumeru and was admitted into the academia as a member of an undisclosed darshan. Zandik despised limitation. He rejected darshan's specialization, criticized the academia reliance on Akasha system, and condemned their refusal to study the Great Red Sand, the domain of King Deshret. Drawn to forbidden knowledge, Zandik frequently explored desert ruins. During one expedition, Zandik and a senior student fell into a hidden domain belonging to Thoth. Supplies dwindled, and his companion was injured. Thoth revealed himself by possessing a cat. Intrigued by Zandik's intellect, he offered him power without explaining the cost. Zandik refused, yet Thoth deceived him, claiming that only descendants of the injured student could leave the domain freely, manipulating Zandik into protecting his companion. Despite this, Zandik later left warning behind, urging future explorer never to trust Thoth. Later, Zandik partnered with Sora, another academia scholar, to explore the ancient city of Gurad. There he encountered Kenria machine, technology not created under the rule of the Seven. Fascinated, he secretly studied a ruined golem, keeping his discovery hidden even from Sora. When a killing machine attacked their camp, and Zandik had no choice but to disable it. Sora was however injured, Zandik strangled her, leaving no witness of his discovery. He buried her body and attempted to bring fragments of the machine back to the academia, only to be reprimanded once again for acting without authorization. Sage Sharnama removed him from the expedition research paper entirely. Zandik later conducted medical research on Eleazar, a disease that slowly withered the body. Children involved in his experiment began disappearing. Zandik blamed the Aranara, a ley-line elemental creature with the power to control dreams. He concluded that by capturing them, humanity would transcend its limitation. Though he failed to capture one, he successfully cured a patient named Abbas using material harvested from diseased patient. Abbas survived, but was physically and mentally scared, believing the cure to be blasphemy. To Zandik, humans were nothing more than biological machines, capable of modification. Despite knowing the danger of doing such experiments, Zandik sought to remain in the academia, as it was a perfect place to perform his research. Eventually, investigators uncovered Soren's remains. They dissected it to verify her cause of death. Despite the laceration and hemorrhaging, the actual fatal injury was a fractured bone in the neck. The cause of death was clear: strangulation. Zandik was ultimately suspected of murder, along with his unethical Eleazar research. Zandik was expelled from the academia and fled into the desert. After his expulsion, Zandik was approached by Piero, who invited him to become part of the Fatui. He offered limitless resources and freedom. Zandik accepted and was given a new name, Il Dottore, the Doctor, a title he found amusingly ironic. Dottore performed experiments with several human subjects regarding an acute toxicity test, during which only one of the 5 subjects survived. A 20-year-old man named Feofan Sergejevic Pascal, who later became the Harbinger known as Pantalone. Dottore would supply Feofan with various experimental drugs. He then began monitoring him. Under Piero orders, Dottore infiltrated Tatarasuna in Inazuma. Disguised as Etcher, he sabotaged the Mikage furnace by slowly poisoning the environment. There he encountered a discarded Raiden Shogun puppet known as Kabukimono. Piero and Dottore showed interest in him, believing he could be of use to fight Tui. When the furnace level became critical, the armory officer named Niwa Isaide was sent inside to fix it. However, Dottore murdered Niwa Isaide, removed his heart, and used it to stabilize the furnace. Then manipulated the puppet into believing Niwa had betrayed him. This act shattered Kabukimono's trust in humanity. Later, Piero recruited him as the 6th Harbinger, Scaramouche. Scaramouche collaborated with Dottore, who modified him to unlock his power and obtain abilities even beyond what his creator had originally given to him. Studying his creation, inspired Dottore to pursue immortality. Scaramouche collaborated with Dottore, who modified him to unlock his power and obtain abilities even beyond what his creator had originally given him. Studying his creation inspired Dottore to pursue immortality. He created segments, clone of himself at different age, to gain multiple perspective and ensure survival. He had one child segment at 8 years old and 5 adult. By under age of 18, 25, 65, and 35, the Omega build. Each clone was precious, and each one were making them highly valuable to him. They referred to him as Zandik. The original Dottore tried to extend his lifespan, but failed. Unfortunately for him, he didn't have too much time left, as he was 80 years old. Sometime after, he suffered from a cardiac arrest, and begged his segment to help. Instead, they simply stood around and watched him die, seeing it as a rare opportunity for self-destruction. They recorded the procedure, and while some segment expressed sadness over his death, they used the procedure as a way to better test the capabilities of the elixir. During his time within the factory, Dottore collaborated with multiple Harbingers. When he was researching the light realm, he became really interested by Columbina, someone who could use the power of Kuvaki. He asked her if she could help with his study. They had a good relationship for around 2050, 400 years old. They had good relation for around 250, 400 years. Enough to have met the original Zandik before he died. Apparently she was like a younger sister for him, though his warped perception on what familial affection is was wrong, as it was a mean to exploit her. Eventually she became bored with the dull session of using Kuvaki for various tasks and stopped attending, presumably putting the research on hold. Dottore never understood what he did to her, as he never harmed her. Still, he occasionally watched her from afar. Then there was the knave, Rukabena, which occasionally would send him her rejected children from the house of the earth for his experiment. However, after she was killed by Pirere, the Harbinger Alekino rejected most of his proposal, with the exception being an independent, secret experiment for which he only proposed the direction at most. He also worked with Sandrone in an experiment involving high temperature. However, an accident happened which caused a substance in a device to explode. However, disregarding safety precaution, Dottore instead ordered a subordinate to open the device, which caused a poisonous gas to leak out. Sandrone barely managed to contain the incident, but was left infuriated when Dottore simply remarked that the experiment was a waste of time, and left her to clean up its mess. Under Dottore guidance, the factory performed Eleazar experiment, using dead god remains, abducting children, including Calais, subjecting them to agonizing procedure. This left Calais traumatized and afflicted with other symptoms. At some point, he either escaped or was released from their facilities. To Dottore, suffering was irrelevant. Results were all that mattered. Then one of the Singmen went into contact with Inspector Arok from the Knight of Favonius, who desired to join in his crusade to replicating divinity. They then together unsealed Ursa the Drake, a draconic monster that plagued Mondstadt thousands of years ago. Totori orchestrated tragedy in Mondstadt by giving Crippus Rajvir a delusion. Having no vision and wanted to be able to protect his family, he accepted it without hesitation. Totori then planted a bug on Descartes to lure Ursa to attack Crippus and Diluc. This forced Crippus to use the delusion to protect his son, but it was unstable and killed him. Ursa the Drake was now a threat to Mondstadt once again. By seeing Ursa as the ward, Totori positioned the fight to a savior, granting him access to recruit vulnerable test subjects, such as Loen and Theodore. During a festival at Diluc Manor, a banquet was hosted by Diluc himself. Totori and Krupp arrived and arranged a meeting with the master. They negotiated the recruitment of Mondstadt citizens into the factory for protection. Disliking the idea, Diluc ended the conversation abruptly. With this failure, he abandoned Mondstadt entirely, turning even his own subordinate Krupp into a rune hunter-like monster. The traveler in Paimon later visited Inazuma, but got captured by Scaramouche and nearly succumbed from the old god rats. Thanks to a Miko intervention, they were saved, but she had to give the electro-Gnosis to Scaramouche. He then cut off contact to the factory and kept the Gnosis with him. This was part of a greater plan set by the Doctor. During La Signora funeral, Totori was questioned by Capitano on the whereabouts of Scaramouche and the Inazuma Gnosis. Totori runabout answer revealed he is waiting on Scaramouche to make a firm move first. Totori later returned to Sumeru, exploiting the Academia desperation to create a new god using Scaramouche. Even though in their record he was banned from the Academia, they still agreed to his offer. The sage then helped him to a certain extent with the project. He then manipulated the Akasha and trapped Anaida, the Dendro-Archon, putting her mind inside a cyclical loop of existence. Thanks to the Traveler, however, the loop was dispelled. Naida then remained in the Akasha system to try and figure out what had caused the sage to step out of line with their last test experiment. Totori meet the Traveler at last in Sumeru, when he, Paimon, and Naida, in Catrian body, attempted to get information on the sage plan. Knowing they would come, he set up an ambush. He modified the Akasha terminal to deposit false information into people's minds, make them believe that the Traveler was a great hero. As a result, they swarmed the group, leaving them no choice but to escape. Unable to steer people like this, Naida used her power to forcibly control the Akasha terminals and undo the change. However, by doing so, Totori now knew who she really was, and it was only a matter of time before he would trap her consciousness again. Totori predicted that the Traveler would attempt to rendezvous with Tainari, who had turned down the sage offer to join their project. He then sent Eremite mercenary after them. Even so, Naida and the group discovered the sage and Dottore true objective, creating a new god in Scaramouche. After this, Dottore succeeded in trapping Naida consciousness again and destroyed the Catherine puppet. Having been recalled to the Sarissa, Dottore had to leave this matter to his subordinate, and Scaramouche. The Traveler and the group took this opportunity to infiltrate the Academia, save Naida and stop Scaramouche. The mission was a success, and when Naida and are free, the Traveler defeated the false god. In defeat, Dottore negotiated directly with Naida, trading the Electro and Dendrogenosis for the destruction of his other segment, and revealing the truth of the false sky. Later, the Fight 3 finally finished building Kuvaki Experimental Design Bureau. Most of the Harbingers were present during its opening, but only Sandrone and Dottore remained in Nod-krai, while the other returned to Chesnaya. Upon learning that the false sky was seen in Natlan, Dottore sent a small group of subordinates to infiltrate the nation from Nod-krai to understand more about the ancient moon segment. At that moment, Dottore pursued his greatest ambition, transcending destiny itself. He used both Pulcinella resources and Pantalone wealth to build a lab in a far corner of Nod-krai. There he began his research on the moon, Kuvaki power, the wild hunt, and so on. Dottore began researching the missing fragment of Rapture of Solnari, Rerir, one of the 5 sinners of Kenria. When he accumulated enough fragments, Dottore was able to revive him. While Rerir had no interest in Dottore research, his obsession with the moon meant that their goals aligned for the time being. Rerir then began causing havoc in Nod-krai, while Colombina was at her weakness. This forced her to acquire the moon marrow, and use them to get enough power to defeat Rerir. Dottore was now waiting, hiding in the shadow, watching. As he hoped, she got her hand on the moon marrow. But not only that, the Traveler, the 4th Descender, helped her. After the defeat of Rerir, Alarkino and Sandrone became suspicious on Dottore as he didn't show himself for a while. They attempted to investigate his motive, though they failed to find anything conclusive. Alarkino expressed her concern to the Sarissa, asking her to recall him, stating that there was no need for 3 Harbingers to be in Nod-krai. The Sarissa agreed and had him recalled, which Dottore complied with as he was reliant of the Fight 3. They doubted he would genuinely comply with the order. He returned to Nod-krai soon after, and made his move while the people were celebrating the Moon Prayer Night festival. He caused a disturbance at Teyvat border in order to distract Alice and place variable in hyperboreal rooms, putting the fandom inside to tell him about the moons. This allowed him to create a false moon, which he hoped Colombina will enter, allowing him to control the power of the moon. He then attacked the Traveler and the other when they were about to see Colombina off, stealing both moon marrow from her and imprisoning her. With his newfound power, he froze time, but found that the traveler was unaffected and further, easily overpowering her in the process. Columbina, realizing what the Tory was up to, made the decision to enter the Moon Gates, as River and Tolandis did, which stopped the Tory from fully harnessing the Marrows, and he retreated in the aftermath. When the Traveler confronted the Tory in his facility, he succeeded at creating an artificial Moon Marrow, and thus had enough power to become a god. He trapped the Traveler in a special space, and tries to convince her to work with him by unlocking her full potential as a descender. The Traveler ultimately refused his proposal and managed to escape his grasp with the help of the Wanderer. With the ally, the Traveler confronted him in a climatic showdown. The Tory showcased his power as he isolated the Traveler abilities before Sandrone arrived to help them. Aware of what they were planning to do, he overpowered both of them, remarking that Sandrone wasted her only chance and tried to kill the Traveler. However, Sandrone took the strike meant for her. She defied the Tory, and he finished her off before resuming his work, only for a formula to complete and restore Columbina. Columbina brings back their allies, who proceed to weaken the Tory, and she vanquished the Tory into nothingness with powerful blasts. However, that wasn't the end for him. Yet. Unknowing to anyone, except Patalone, part of the Tory's soul was converted into data and was stored in the Northland Bank. Now that it fulfilled half of his theory, it was time for the next stage. His ally Pantalone moved to Sumeru with his forces, and it reached the destination, uploaded the Doctor data into Imran's soul. He then was made whole and had knowledge soul form inside the tree. He then began overriding the Dendro Archon access over the system, so no one could interfere in his plan. By remaking Imran's soul his own, he spotted a massive Imran soul tree that fully manifested and began to grow. It was stopped, however, thanks to the people of Sumeru hard work by using the Aru system of King Deshret to replace the tree entirely. The Tory was now unable to mess with the ley line of the will. However, as long as the Tory was inside Imran's soul, Sumeru would be in danger, and its corruption would continue to spread. And so the Traveler and Wanderer were sent inside Imran's soul, confront him. He remembered the Wanderer as Scaramouche, and tried to break him by talking about his past, but failed. After an intense battle, the Tory was defeated, but the corruption of Imran's soul was irreversible. To stop this, Naida used the pyrogenesis to burn the entire system down. As it was merged with Imran's soul, the Tory was burned away along with the tree, finally ending his long life. With the short time he had left, he said farewell to Patalone and Naida before fading away, satisfied with the result of his experiment. Satisfied with the result of his experiment. And that was the entire story of what I think is the best villain in Genshin Impact. However, is that really the end? Is the Tory gone for good, or still have a way to come back again? The chances are very slim, and in the end, he achieved what he wanted. The only way to see him again would be in the realm of death, if that even exists. And you guys, what do you think? Is he really dead for good this time? Also, what is your thought about the Tory himself and his story? Please leave a comment. If you want to see more Genshin Impact lore or other games, such as Trail or Legend of Zelda, don't forget to subscribe. I'm also doing some talk theory video about Genshin Impact, 2 and short trivia quiz about the 3 games I mentioned. Speaking of game, I have a channel for my gaming and live stream on Pandragon Gaming. If interested, of course. Thank you all for watching, and may the Archon and Moon Goddess watch over you. Panagon Vanimar offline.